Hello and welcome. So happy to see you all. And I always, I don't keep track of holidays very well. And so I didn't, I thought, oh, this is a holiday weekend. But since we have had this meeting on Christmas and on New Year's, I thought, well, what the heck? Yeah, we can always, I can always take 20 minutes from whatever else I'm doing to be with community. So I was also thinking as I was preparing for today that the act of giving attention is an act of including. So when I give attention to someone, I'm letting them know that I am including them in the space. And for me, one of the intentions of our practicing, particularly loop of awareness, is that we're including ourselves, we're including others, we're including the environment in our experience. And just by simple practices of our attention, we can, I was thinking today, I especially wanted to focus on what I call fanning and focusing. And both of those skills of attention are incredibly valuable. So if you're, let's just do a little bit of it and then I'll talk a little bit about it. So here you are, and there are all of these squares that you're looking at, those of you who are on the call. But for those of you who are not on the call, just looking at if you're sending your attention out, how do you usually do that? So if you're like checking out, you're about to go out the door, you're moving from one place in your home to another, you're planning. So when you're sending your attention out, my sense is that most people don't really attend to how they use their attention. And I've learned how to do fanning, which I let my attention spread out. And then I let my attention come to focus on something. And it's been an incredible skill, especially for those of you who do any kind of work with people. So coming into a meeting, for example, when you walk in the door to a meeting, my invitation is to fan your attention. So I'd like you to practice that just by looking at other people, like letting yourself fan out your attention and then letting yourself focus in on one person, and then fanning your attention again and letting yourself focus on one person. Now, as most of you are doing that, it looks like you're using it as a serious assignment. Like a lot of you got, I see the breath disappear, like, okay, now I'm fanning and now I'm focusing. So if you're letting yourself add some curiosity, like, for me, the and keeping a little movement going in my body allows my curiosity to fan out. Because when I get scared or anxious, my attention then tends to get more rigid. So if I'm humming and fanning and then focusing, and I invite you to let your focusing be also have that curiosity, but a sense of including, like, oh, like what one of my friends, Jen Pasteloff, calls I gotcha. It's a kind of I gotcha, so fanning and then hello, I gotcha, and then fanning out. And so let yourself do that a few times. And as you're doing that, I can see and experience more liveliness in the group. So there's more movement, there's more breath. So our attention adds to the circulation of attention and the liveliness that we can experience together. So that fanning and focusing is something I really invite you to use, especially when you're coming into an unknown space, which is like all the time. Uh, and you're coming into a space maybe with people that you don't know or an agenda that you don't know. And so the fanning out lets you put your attention into the room and into the space. And I find when I do that, that the space is enlivened. You know, the space between us, the space around us is enlivened by our attention. And so the fanning and focusing is one of the main skills that I come back to, and that when I'm teaching, or especially because I've spent a lot of time in foreign countries and going into groups where I don't know anybody, and I don't know the space, and I don't know the country, and I don't know the language. And so what really assists connection is the way I'm using my attention. And I found that fanning invites inclusion. I'm fanning my attention, and people can feel my attention. They can feel, sense, and take in your attention. And so that fanning and focusing, so fanning and like, hello. So when if I'm giving a presentation somewhere live, I'm in the whole first part, I'm fanning out my attention, and then focusing it like a hello, a looping, an including somebody in. Now, what often gets left out of that is you. So now I want you to bring your attention back to you. And how can you fan your attention through you, through your inside? So like you could do it like your own little X-ray machine that goes, you know, and sort of goes from top to bottom. You could be going around yourself. You could be coming from your insides, like taking an elevator up and down. You could have a sprinkler analogy where you kind of sort of fan across your sensations. So I invite you to fan inside in a way that you choose. You might experiment, and then letting yourself focus, letting your body tell you where more attention is wanted right now. So that attention, like I pulled something a couple of weeks ago during travel. And so, you know, it's much more flowing now, but when I fanned, it still goes, yeah, I'm still here. And so it gives me, it's like, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm still here. And so you can then give attention to, this is a great place to then use your love scoops. So fanning and focusing, and then love scooping to wherever is wanting that attention. You can do that with your breath. You can do that with touch. You can do that with movement, because there may be, when you're fanning and focusing, there's part of you that says, you know, you've been holding your head that way for the last 10 minutes. So move. And it will then give you the next step to include more of you. So if I'm fanning and focusing inside, and then I'm fanning and focusing outside, the other thing that I know occurs for me as I'm practicing this is that I'm much better able to sense the context. I'm much better able to sense what I'm walking into, what's going on, what the bigger picture is. And then within the bigger picture, like what's the next thing I want to give attention to, but I'm aware of the bigger picture. So the bigger picture might be, oh, there's some kind of anxiety going on here. Or the bigger picture might be, oh, there's something that's wanting to happen. And, you know, I can sense it, but it hasn't quite emerged yet. But because I'm fanning my attention, I'm like ready to focus on it when it emerges. So very often when I'm fanning in a group, the whoever it is that's wanting attention, something will happen with them where I go zoop, and then I can give them that focused attention and then fan out again. And the ability to do that also enlivens you, and it enlivens the group, whoever is in the group. So as that's the practice that I want to offer to you from our loops and scoops. And I would like you to just take a moment to notice your aliveness just from that few minutes of practice. And every week I want to focus on some aspect of loop of awareness of the actual skills, so that we're practicing them. Because when we just touch into them, it's like, oh yeah, I know that. But it's very different to know that, like, oh, I know that skill, than it is to actually have integrated the practice. And one thing I notice is that as I'm practicing, my presence becomes more of I don't know, it's not exactly a lighthouse, but there's a sense of my presence becomes a source of nourishment for others. And your presence, as you're fanning and focusing, becomes a palpable, a representative, but a sense of nourishment, a reservoir for you and for others that you can draw on. So, and without giving yourself away. So those of us who are, givers and givers, so it's really important that you fan and focus on you also, as well as out there, because I just know that those of you who are on the call are much more used to fanning and focusing out there than you are in here. So yeah, so giving yourself even just a little bit more. I like to use my M&Ms analogy. When I was a kid, we had to share our M&Ms, and so when I had to share my M&Ms with my brothers, I would share, but it was always one for them and two for me, and one for them and two for me. And so that's the ratio that of attention that I'd like to invite you into, is one for them and two for me. Because we are really, taught to, it's better to give than receive. But if there's nobody to receive, that's not a gift to the givers. So if you're also open to receiving attention, that's a gift as well. So I wanted to jump into the integrity card that I want to share with you today, because it has a lot to do with a way of being in the world, a way of acting in the world that I think is incredibly vital. So when you're looking at this, let yourself, fan your attention, just fanning it, like letting it move around, and then focusing on one part of the card, and then bringing your attention back to you and fanning your attention throughout your body, and then focusing on like any place that's gotten activated. Like my diaphragm is responding to this card. And so I'm giving attention there and just noticing, what's happening there, and then giving my attention back to the card, fanning, and then and then focusing, and my eyes went right to this pupil of the eye that's on the card. And I noticed that I held my breath a little bit when I was looking there. So coming back to then fanning inside you. And I'd like you to let yourself just gently continue that while I'm reading both the statement and the question here. I make clear, direct requests that include a by when instead of airing generalized complaints. So I'm going to say that again. And this time when I'm fanning, I noticed that at opening the blue sky through the sort of the cosmic eyeball there. I make clear, direct requests that include a by when instead of airing generalized complaints. And then the question is, how can I make a conscious agreement here? How can I make a conscious agreement here? And then just taking in those words and letting your body sort of fan out just the experiences, the sensory experiences you're having of hearing those words, and then letting your body tell you what area is really wanting your focused presence, your focused attention. Agreements. So let's come on back to the group, because reason I'm focusing on agreements is that agreements give us our structure for being together. So without agreements, there's no way to be together in a conscious way. And I wanted to focus on this particular one because most people don't consider that agreements are important. And and what I've noticed especially in the last several years, is because we don't have here in the US, we don't have currently a unified sense of reality. We don't have a shared sense of reality, which to me is created primarily through agreements. And that the agreements that we have, people say, for example, oh, I don't do politics. Well, politics is really a set of agreements, and it's about how we agree to be with each other. And so we go, oh, I don't do that because they're, well, how do you create in your life? How do you co-create? If you don't have an agreement, how do you do anything? And so the art of agreements is absolutely central to creating a structure for being together. And since making generalized complaints is kind of an art form going on for many people, because you can always get up a conversation around, ain't it awful? Oh no, and all of the different awfulnesses, and then never move to, well, what could we do? What could we create together? What could we agree together to do that would uh, create a way for people to enjoy living and to be able to live, to be able to go and do and create and get, all of the things that we do during a day. So without agreements, like the agreement that we're all going to drive at a certain speed on the roads. And if we don't have that agreement and people don't stick to that agreement, we have many more accidents. We don't, so you can't, there's a big pileup and you can't get from where you are to where you want to go because there's been a big pileup because people haven't been following the agreement. So there's also an understanding that I was talking about with Gay years ago, is that when you step into, like when you get your driver's license, you are agreeing to follow a certain set of rules. And the rules, a lot of us get hung up on agreements because it reminds us of unconsciously of toilet training. And, we want to be able to poop wherever we want to poop whenever, like little kids. And I think there's a lot of that going on right now, that people are pooping wherever they want to, sort of in general. But if we have an agreement, and I am keeping that agreement. So when when I get into a car, I know that I'm stepping into a set of agreements. So in all areas of our lives, we really operate by agreements. And one of the things that people leave out of their agreements, which was in the statement here, is the by when. The one of the skills of agreements is, I'd like to meet you for lunch tomorrow at 1. And there's no, I can't meet you at 1. I have to wait till 1:15. So we find it and we agree. And then both of us are stepping into, I have agreed, I'm creating a blueprint with you. And then when I step into it, I'm creating a sense of wholeness and integration and inclusion from that agreement. So the playing with and exploring, what's my state of, by whens, what agreements did I agree to? And oh my God, I didn't do that. So this leads to what we call dealing with incompletions, of looking at what are the things I had agreed to do and I didn't, and then writing them down and handling those, just one by one, rather than, of course, then blaming and shaming yourself because, oh my God, I didn't give my agreements. Because I notice that the more I'm aligned with my agreements, and this includes your agreements with yourself also, the more that I'm aligned with my agreements, the more my energy is free to create. It's free to create and to connect. And so whenever there's an issue, a kerfuffle of some kind, the first thing I look at is what's going on with agreements. What agreements are incomplete? What agreements did I say I was going to make and I didn't? Agreements that other people have made with me. That's kind of the advanced stuff, because first I want to make sure that I've cleaned up my own backyard, and then I can take a look at well, you were going to, I have this thing going with my with somebody that I've worked with, my computer guy, who was going to get us a Ring doorbell like 2 months ago, and that hasn't happened. So that's on my agenda to follow up on today. Hey, hello, what's going on here? Do I need to move to another, do I need to move to another company for this? So rather than being in the debris that unfulfilled agreements make, I always like to look at, whenever there's a kerfuffle, look at agreements first. Because if an agreement has been broken or hasn't been kept, then there's going to be something to communicate. There's going to be something about responsibility, and there's going to be something about feelings. Somebody's going to have feelings. And if you say something like, hey, we were going to meet and you didn't show up, and there's going to be feelings. So I like to look at agreements, because if there's a wobble in agreements, there's a wobble in everything else. So that's why I call it the canary in the coal mine of our relationships with others. And so I wanted you to have this, because we're making a transition now into summer. And I think also in summer, people tend to get kind of, oh, well, about their agreements. Oh, well, it's summertime and there's plenty of time. So look at the excuses that you give yourself for not keeping your agreements, and notice what is going out. So as you fan and focus your attention, you'll find there was, maybe something in there from the past, like, I'm mad at them because they didn't recognize me for the thing I did, 4 years ago. There'll be something there. And then you can just communicate about that and clear it up. Like, I'm still holding on to that thing. And I feel embarrassed about it. And then you can clear it up. And so in service of, as I've been practicing these integrity skills, the biggest benefit is that I get clear, open space in the middle of me. So the more I'm in integrity, the more I'm available for being in life and interacting right now, rather than having debris that keeps me from sensing what's really going on for me and keeps me from connecting. So you get more and more open space, more and more clarity, and more being able to include what is going on. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I loved interacting with you, because I can feel you, from our practice of looping, I can feel you entertaining this and considering it, and your consciousness actually ripples out. You may think, oh, it's just me, but your consciousness ripples out and encourages others, supports others to be developing and opening to their own wholeness. So thank you so much for being here on a US holiday weekend. And I just want to let you know, I am not barbecuing today. I'm just not doing that. But I am getting.
That was so beautiful. So beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So you're very welcome to stay and continue having deep conversations. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Mwah. Thank you so much. Bye now.